everybody. Welcome to COCA tonight. This is Stories from the Virtual Battlefront. I am Chris Beckwith from Camp Hopi, and I'll be your host for this session. So tonight we have presenting, we have Linda Haycraft, Community Program Specialist from Camp Uchagais and Camp Trillium in Ontario, Canada. Harry Brislin, volunteer from Camp Arapahoe in Alabama. Dave Smith is Senior Director of Outreach and Programming and Assistant to the Regional Manager from Special Love and Camp Fantastic, based in Virginia and Maryland.
Dave Schrute, that's me.
Tammy Jenkins, Medical Coordinator from Special Love Camp Fantastic as well. And Brandon Briery, the Chief Program Officer and Executive Camp Director from Camp in Texas. And I will turn it over to Dave to get things started.
Well, welcome everybody. I know that now that we're at the end of our first day of COCA-Con, you've already heard some success stories and caught up with some people on what they were doing all summer. But now we want to cover we're going to take 4 examples of camps that had both successes and lessons learned to share what they are proud of and what they learned so that, God forbid, if we have to do this all again next year, we will have a big head start on this year. I don't know about everyone else, but I can list several lessons we learned right off the bat. Had I known then what I know now, we would have done things a little differently. So without further ado, I asked Linda if she would go first to talk about Camp Uch and Camp Trillium. So Linda, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Linda. I'm representing Camp Uch and Camp Trillium tonight. And for those of you who knew us as 2 separate organizations, we've actually merged into one big blended camp family. As of January of this year, we're now all one. So kind of a fun thing that happened this year. And I know not too many fun things have happened in 2020. That was a great one. We are all one now. We can go to the next slide, please. So we are based in Ontario, Canada. And again, now that we're merged, we actually cover most of Ontario with our camps, which is really great. And we provide our programs typically through 4 main ways: through overnight camps, through day camps, through our community programs in cities across Ontario, and our in-hospital programs. And then lucky us, as of this year, we are now doing virtual programs as well. We started those in March of this year, actually maybe 2 weeks after we went into shutdown. We piloted our first virtual program, and we can go to the next slide, please, if that's okay. And certainly one of the things we as an organization are most proud of is how quickly we got these off the ground. And by May, we were running 4 to 6 programs a week that actually have done that consistently throughout the spring, summer, and now into the fall. We are continuing to do this 4 to 6 days a week. Kids can join our programs. And we have options for kids from tots to age 13. We have teen-based programs. We have programs for the whole family. And we offered virtual programs in our hospitals as well when we weren't able to be there with the kids. And as much as possible, we've been trying to involve our volunteers and community partners. And this has been really great, a great way to keep our volunteers engaged in programs and also mutually beneficial for us and our community partners. We're kind of helping each other out. So you can see the picture there that was our program brochure for August. So this is, a selection of some of the programs we offered. My personal favorite from August, if you look on the second page there under family programs, 4th one down, called Best in Show. We had so many kids who were just showing off their pets in every program, cats and dogs walking through the background. That whole program, we turned it into bring your animal, real or fake, doesn't matter, and show us what your pet can do. It was, one of the most fun hours I had the entire summer, is just looking at these kids' pets and watching them be so proud to show off their animals. Next slide, please. So just a couple pictures from family programs, and the one on the bottom is one of our teen programs. So one of the other things we've been really proud of during this time is we've really just put most of our focus on helping kids to feel connected and providing opportunities for social interaction, because that's been so hard during the past few months. And we've gotten some really wonderful feedback from families about the consistency and support that we've been offering them, and particularly with our strange transition out of school for a while, now kind of back into school, some kids doing virtual school, some kids doing in-person school at the moment. We decided throughout the fall, to really stay the course with our virtual programs, to be something that kids and families could rely on, that was gonna stay the same for them. And next slide. Awesome. And another big focus for us was to have something beyond a passive, watching a screen experience. As much as possible, we try to have something physical, tangible for our campers to do. So you can see, the top left photo there, that little guy is dressed up for an oceanography program. So he's got his flippers and his goggles on. Top right, those girls are holding self-portraits. We did self-portrait lessons for one of our programs. The photo at the bottom, we did a cooking program. That was a really interesting challenge to find out a way to have kids all across Ontario cooking something together when we didn't all have the same ingredients. So that was another really neat program that we were able to do. And we'll go to the next slide, please. Yeah, and as I mentioned before, going forward, we are going to continue doing this program, our virtual programs, for a while, because we're not able to do much of our in-person programming. We have returned to programming in children's hospitals across Ontario, which is really fantastic to start seeing those kids in person again. But as we're not able to do in-person community programs or our overnight or day camp programs yet, we will continue doing our virtual. And that's it for me for now.
Very good. Thank you, Linda. Inadvertently, I think I let you go first so that many of this panelists could just say what she said. That's an amazing array of features. Harry Brislin is with us from Camp Arapahoe. So Harry, let us know what you guys did.
Nothing compared to Linda. We've done nothing. No, Linda, that's fantastic to see that. No, we had a great year, considering what we really were kind of just thrown into like everyone else. We had the early decision as well, maybe not as early as May 2020 like Linda did, but we have the first week in June. And so we were stuffed right into it at the beginning. And one of the things that we made the determination on was not to try to replicate camp, because we could never truly replace camp, and trying to get people to feel that this is camp through a computer screen just was not going to work. So I'm glad that we did make that decision. But one of the things we did try to do was try to similarly have camp. And one of the best ways to do that was get the visibility of those, as many of our camp folks as possible. Everybody that they see every day, from the director to the ladies in the kitchen, to our counselors, to the campers themselves. Just highlight as many of the students or many of the campers and the participants as we could. One of the other things that we really weren't sure about in the beginning of Zoom was how folks were going to take to it. Because again, we were in late May, early June. So we chose to go the route of presentation over participation. Rather than having something that depended on people to be there, we went the route of having more presentations that they would view on their schedule and on their time. Because one of the things that we have to deal with is figuring out what we're competing with. We're competing with kids on YouTube. We're competing with their schooling. We're competing with them playing, PlayStation, Nintendo, outside, whatever. Well, I guess not playing with kids outside, but going outside and being with family. So we knew that it was going to be very finite times that we would have with them. Having a presentation gave them the opportunity to choose the times that they took in the videos that we posted online. One of the things that we did, of course, with that being said, was using Zoom sparingly. We did have a couple of group meetups that we had. We had a DJ dance party, which I think you see behind me right now. That worked out really well. But again, we found that we got more counselor participation than we did camper participation, because again, as adults, as counselors, we can make our schedules. Campers kind of have to go with what their parents are doing, and it's very tough to do that. So like I said, we used the Zoom function sparingly, but we did have some good programming that did work. Next slide. See, it worked just like I thought. So one of the things that we had was Taskmaster. And again, this was a hybrid of kind of presentation and participation. We tasked the kids with tasks to perform and then submit those to us. We would look over the task and we would select the best, and we'd post them each week. This lasted for a couple of weeks that we did just because we needed to keep it moving with other stuff and not get stale with this, but it worked out well. It was simply just manufactured off of a British panel show that was that involves a lot of comedians. And again, something like a simple task, just get a standard sheet of paper into a trash can in the most amazing way. We had kids bouncing on trampolines. We have people throwing them through the screen to their cousin, to their neighbor, and just going on and on. And then I judged as the taskmaster which one was the best. And they got a camp prize. Next slide. Next slide. There we go. Okay. Word. One of the things that I was mentioning about keeping our familiar faces in front of everyone was Circle Time with Brad. Brad, you may have met from COCA in the past. Camp is kind of, or excuse me, Brad is our Circle Time guy. He opens the morning every morning with them, and this is the real serious part. You know, I tell Brad is this serious educational fun. I'm the stupid, mindless fun. So Brad starts the morning off with one of our spirits, and they discuss the spirit of laughter, the spirit of faith, hope, and love. They had that serious conversation. We felt it was really important to keep that as a part of it. Next slide. Next thing we had was behind the scenes videos. We went into the kitchen and we made the brownies. You can see they're very appetizing, but that's exactly how the brownies were made for camp. Just gave them a glimpse into the behind the scenes actions of that. But again, focus on keeping those folks they see every day out front and seeing them. Next slide. Familiar camp characters, just like we mentioned, may look familiar to my fireplace, but that is not me. Next slide. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, the DJ dance party as well. Again, we found more counselors showing up to these than we did the counselor just because of how we schedule them. So we used that as sparingly as we could. But the dance party is always something that's synonymous with every week of camp. So we felt we did have to have some aspect of a dance party, and it worked out well. Next slide. And finally, mind reading video. I really don't know what to say with that, except go to our YouTube page and check that out at Rapahope. It's kind of just a silly way that we came up just to, you know, be funny and enjoy the mindless fun, as I like to say, of camp. So it's kind of interesting the way that we came up with that. I'll get into the downside later, but that video took 7 hours to make. I'll never do this again. Next. Our modifications, we're going to do that later, Dave, or are we going to do that now?
Either way, you're on a roll.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say the modifications for next year, it says it right there. Wear your mask. I don't want to do this again. I've never wanted to do this any less than what I did this year. It was just very difficult to do because we're so used to seeing the kids and participating and blowing it out of the park with what we do. And to take it and just scale it down to such a small structure was just very difficult this year. And we want to get it back to what we do at camp. So we'd probably keep the same structure like we did, but we'd make better use of the lead time and learn a lot of what we're hearing tonight, and probably up the participation level more than what we did with the presentation. We still feel good about the presentation side of it, but I think we can reach a better, 50-50 level of the presentation versus participation with having kids interact with each other live on Zoom. So that's my presentation.
Excellent. Thank you, Harry. And it's funny that you mentioned that as your last lesson, because Tammy Jenkins is going to talk about Camp Fantastic in a moment, but that's Special Love's patient camp. Our sibling camp, Brass, actually did the opposite. They did more what you did, Harry. They actually spent the entire month of July with content, a little content every day for a month, whereas we took, and a lot of it was pre-recorded so that the kids could do it whenever they wanted. But for the week of Camp Fantastic, which Tammy's going to talk about now, it was that one intensive week where we were all day long, and she's going to take it from here. Tammy?
All right, thank you. So just want to tell you a little bit about what we did for Camp Fantastic. A lot of it's going to ring true with what you've heard already, but then I'm also going to take a little unique twist and talk about how we incorporated med staff into our virtual camp. So let's start off with camp first. And to make a virtual camp work, we all know that the key is to have a good website. And so everybody, I'm sure, had something set up I have to give kudos to our rockstar communications manager, Lizzie, who put this one together. And it was great because it was truly a one-click and people could get in. So you didn't have a lot of families contacting you saying, I don't know how to get in, I can't get this to work. It was, you go to this website and every day it was highlighted where we were at, you click that highlighted one and boom, you're there. So it was great. It also gave us the opportunity to have parents and kids upload videos and photos from the week so that we could use them for social media. So we had them take pictures of, you know, participating in different camp activities, and we put it up on social media. One of the other things that was great was that we had a photography class that we ran. One of the professional photographers who comes to camp each year ran a photography class for the kids, and the kids loved it. She would give them homework every night to take a picture using certain kinds of lighting or certain kinds of shadows, and they would upload their photos onto the website, and then she would go through and critique them, and they would talk about them together, and they learned about photography with their camera phones. It was really awesome. But we gave them an opportunity. The photographs were so awesome that we put them up on the website so that everybody could take a look at them. So it was a great website. Next slide, please. Maybe I should try this. My genie. Okay, so we had also some celebrity guests that came to visit us. We, as Dave mentioned earlier, we did mostly live sessions. We did have a few recorded sessions, but even when we had recorded sessions, the people who recorded the session got online with us live, and we showed the video, and then they stayed for question and answer, which was really awesome. We had a fireman who came and showed all around the fire engine and the firehouse, and then the kids stayed on and asked questions of him for about 45 minutes. We didn't think it was going to last that long. We had the same thing with a medevac helicopter. So that was really nice to kind of put the two of those together and have the ability for kids to ask live questions. We also had some celebrities. So WeTV's party planner for the stars, David Tutera, came and did a craft activity for us. And what was very cool that we learned from him was instead of just having a video of someone doing the craft, he had an aerial view of the craft while he was doing it so that the kids could really see what was being done. So I think that's, if there's a way to do that when we do virtual camp again, because I think we're going to have to, then we should be able to use that. We also had Chuck Bell, who's our local DC meteorologist, who came and talked about extreme weather with the kids and allowed the kids to ask questions. So it was really great. And some of the things we had too were just local businesses that came in that provided content, like our local, there was a metal work group that came and showed us how they use a laser to cut the metal to create our logo in a fire pit. So just kind of cool things. And it was a nice way to incorporate the community with it. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about how we incorporate a med staff. Now, you might say there's not really a great use for med staff at a virtual camp unless somebody gets like a kink in their neck from looking at the computer for too long. So there's not really a lot for people to do. But our med staff are totally committed, and we're just as much disappointed as everyone else that they weren't going to be able to come to camp in person, and they didn't see a role for themselves. So what we tried to do was really incorporate them, and most of their function was in the prep of camp, but it gave them a big presence at camp when we did the virtual camp. So this was a video this is just a still, but we put a video together where we asked all of the med staff to provide a picture of them with their face mask on in a funky way, and then in a silly way, and then on correct, and then to show their face so that they could tell who it was. And we had it all done to Benny Hill music, and it was pretty funny. And this was kind of an example of, we did a bunch of public service announcements, silly commercials. So because we were the med staff, we felt that we needed to, provide some information. So this one showed them how to wear your mask properly. We did one on hand washing using glitter and lotion to show where the germs are and how you have to wash your hands. We did one on applying sun lotion and sunscreen, all the things that they're used to seeing med staff at camp. Next slide, please. This was just an example of one of the first things that we did was try to help out with getting kids to sign up for camp. So we had a lot, you know, our camp is in August. Come around July, we still had a lot of kids who we know were eligible for camp who hadn't signed up. So we got a group of med staff and made this card and wrote personal notes to every kid that we had an address for that said, I'm so excited, I'm gonna be at camp, I hope you're gonna be there too, and just tried to really encourage them to sign up. And I think it really helps with some of the recruitment. Next slide, please. So because that worked so well, we got the crazy idea of Operation Mail Call, because at camp, mail call is a big thing at lunchtime. Everybody wants to get the package from home. And so we thought, let's try to take this into another realm. So we set up this Operation Mail Call so that every child would get a postcard from a different person every day of the week of camp, and they would get something in mail call. So that picture on the I guess left side of your screen is my spreadsheet for trying to coordinate this to make sure that nobody got a card from the same person twice, and that I tried to get their counselors from last year and their nurses from last year so that they were people that knew them, and they wrote very personal cards. Next slide, please. We also sent that first card the week before camp to say, please come and, you know, can't wait to see you, because we were really afraid that people would kind of forget or just poop out and not want to sign on. So we sent them another card saying, hey, we're so excited, camp's almost here. These are the postcards that we sent. So we tried to, you know, we always have farm day on Wednesday. So on Wednesday, we sent the farm day card. We always do the friendship circle at the end of camp. So we sent that on the last day. So we tried to just kind of incorporate some of the camp traditions in these cards. Next slide, please.
The people in the chat really, really love that idea.
Yay. Well, I have to say, I got to take a second here to thank COCA for doing the med staff town halls, because I stole that idea and twisted it from something that came out of one of those meetings. Someone had talked about having people send the nurses cards, and I was like, well, how about if I get the nurses to send them cards? So I can't take full credit for the idea, but it was great. So we really encourage people to you know, personalize the cards and make it age appropriate. And so you can see this person made it colorful, added jokes. I don't know if the post office liked it, all the right stuff around there, but it worked pretty well. I think overall, the kids were excited to get the cards, especially from people they know. It didn't always work perfectly because we were at the mercy of the Postal Service, and there were some things going on with the Postal Service at that time. So we did have some delays, but I think overall it worked well. Next slide, please. The other thing that we did was we had a brainstorming session with all the med staff to try to come up with ideas of how they could participate. And one of the things we did was, how do we interact with the kids? Well, we interact with them by applying boo-boo Band-Aids, by putting on ice packs. We always, you know, saving the world one ice pack at a time, putting on sunscreen and bug spray. So we decided to give them all those things to remind them of us. So we sent them a little care pack that had s'mores flavored chapstick. It's nasty, but it sounded really cool for camp. Hand sanitizer, you know, sunscreen, bug spray. And then we sent them cloth face masks that they could decorate so that they could express their individual feelings with that. And of course, fake mustaches, because everybody needs a fake mustache. So next slide, please. And then we just attached the card that said, we might not be there with you this year, but we'll always be there for you. So don't forget to wash your hands, wear a mask, put your sunscreen and bug spray on, and have fun. So we just wanted to have a presence in their mind. And I think it worked pretty well. It was nice because the one little 7-year-old kid that got it in his kit, his mom said he slept with it the first night. So it made me happy. Okay, next slide, please. Two last quick things. As you can see from my lovely virtual background, we took a group of med staff out to camp, and we had a field day, a socially distanced masked field day. But we went out to camp and actually decorated lodge rooms for all the different lodge rooms to try to, and took pictures of them so that we could post them on the website so kids could use them as a virtual background, especially when we were doing cabin chats. So just try to create that feel of being in the cabins. Next slide, please. And we also, the flamingo is kind of one of our camp mascots. And so med staff adopted it as Florence Flamingo, and we had med staff that had a blast taking it all around camp, taking pictures of it. And we were going to do a like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego type of thing. But to be honest, we didn't get it finished in time for camp. So we'll be using it for some other virtual program in the future. But it was fun. It also gave med staff time to be at camp and have their own fun there, even though we couldn't be in person. And I think that's it. Sorry.
People love the backgrounds.
Yeah, and we stole
cool.
that idea. I think it was Camp Stomping Ground. I saw it on their website.
Yeah.
But like Tammy said, I think one postscript note on that is that those were great ideas for the camper's sake, but they were also great from the med staff's standpoint because it gave them a feeling like they were needed this year and that they got to contribute. So, you know, we all, as we're learning with virtual camp, we all want to be relevant and we all want to feel like we're contributing. So this was a good way to keep them engaged. All right, moving right along. Brandon has the distinction of not only serving multiple needs, but also already being back in person with some of those camps. And so what better way to finish up the four-way, I guess, bragathon than to talk about how some camps are actually figuring out how to keep moving. So Brandon.
Thanks, Dave. And like I said, I always feel like at COCA, especially, I need to give the caveat to say that we do serve kids with a variety of special needs, medical conditions, physical disabilities, developmental disabilities, behavioral challenges, intellectual challenges. I think that's cognitive. I don't know. I think I hit pretty much all of them. We really cover a wide realm, and our mission is about recreation, respite, and education for all of those groups. So, you know, we really wanted to keep that in mind during this year, and go on to the next slide. But, you know, when things hit, we decided, you know, we've got to really figure out how to do things. And the slide here is talking about summer. We did a few things in the spring, and that slide may be in here. I may have them out of order, but that's okay. We're going to talk about summer. We really, like many others, wanted to try to mirror the week of summer camp. And I know others didn't want it to look like summer camp. They wanted it to be its own new thing. So we made the choice to make it mirror summer camp as much as possible, especially because of the variety of campers we serve. Having those touchstones to what is familiar to a schedule that makes it feel like camp was important to us. And so that was part of what we really strive to do with the schedule itself. We also had to think about what platform to use. We did decide to use Zoom. It kind of gave us the best opportunities to use the most features that were going to work for us and our campers. As you see there, we did decide, just in terms of keeping things safe, we had a password for every session. We changed the password each day. We had different links for each activity session, and the same password applied each day of summer camp. But even then, we admitted them through a waiting room, so we had a lot of control over who was in or not in our room. And then we also decided that we were going to do Camp in a Box, as many call it. We love our acronyms at camp, so we named them Camp Kits, which stood for Keep in Touch Supplies. And for us, I know a lot of folks did boxes that were kind of standalone and had activities that could be self-facilitated. We sent them out as a complement to the activities we were going to facilitate live on Zoom. And that was the decision that we felt would really help make sure that every camper had the supplies they needed and that the supplies were consistent. And, you know, one camper didn't look and see that somebody else had a much cooler version of something. Again, many of our campers do have intellectual disabilities, and sometimes those comparisons are a little more challenging for them than for some kids who are more typically developing neurocognitively. We did decide on Can't Stop the Feelin' as our theme for the summer because as you all know, Camp is about that feeling and that community and that connection, and COVID might not allow us to be in person, but the feeling that is behind camp was still with us through everything we did. So we can move on to the next slide. These were just some of the results that came back from families. Christy's parent, said, I was so impressed with how well camp adapted to virtual rather than actual in-person camp, provided a happy place in my daughter's life that the real world doesn't always give her. You can see for Denton, his mom said, we both cried when it was over. My son always returns from camp a little different, with a swagger, an air, a confidence he didn't have before. I now see how this is achieved. The hearts of the staff are poured into the kids. It is so uplifting in these uber cynical times. Our deepest gratitude to all. And I know that you have those stories from your camp too. These are not unique in terms of what it means for the kids and the families, but I think it is important to underscore that what we were able to do virtually may not have been all that we would love to see in our in-person camps, but we were still hitting on those really important components that gave connection, made people feel like they were part of something. Question that I saw pop in through the chat there, we mirrored the summer camp session just like how we would have a typical summer session. And that was to start on Sunday evening with campfire, opening campfire. And then we kept some of those traditions of summer camp, like morning flagpole. We did every day. That was how we started every day, was with morning flagpole. We had 4 activity rotations during the day. Typically at camp we have 5, but because we were virtual, we wanted to give plenty of time for people to rest their eyes. We cut it down to 4 with lots of breaks in between, a long break for lunch, a long break for dinner, all of that kind of thing. So 4 activities during the day, and then at night, we had a night activity that we capped off with sort of a bedtime story that one of the staff did. Because many of our campers are nonverbal and are not able to communicate in a traditional cabin chat kind of thing, we felt like providing a story would be the best way to help them connect together during that closing time in the evening. And then Thursday night, we did a dance like we typically would do on a summer week. And on Friday, we ended with closing ceremonies where every camper who had participated that week got a personalized award. And it was hard this year. Coming up with the awards when you have just been interacting through a screen, it was a challenge to come up with unique awards for all of the campers. But we did it, and it was incredibly meaningful to them, and we're so glad that we did, and would continue if we need to do that type of programming. And even if we don't need to, and I think I have this in another slide, we may find that we want to at some point in the future. You can see stats. I won't go over that. You can read those, but I just kind of shared those. We can move on if you want to the next slide. So during the school year, we started our programs in the spring, and what we decided to do in the spring was maybe more like some of the things that Uch and Trillium were doing, although I don't think that we were probably as advanced as you guys were looking at your schedule. It was amazing. But we decided to put out webisodes. We did it 3 times a week. We launched them 7 p.m. We had social media teasers telling them they were coming. And they really just mostly featured our year-round staff, Towards the end of the spring, we had a couple of work days because we still weren't sure if we might be able to have summer. So we did some socially distanced work days. And while we had some of our seasonal staff on site, we did involve them in some of those videos. One of those is what you see on the upper right-hand corner in this slide. One of our traditions of camp is a star lighting ceremony that we do on the last night of camp. And so for our last episode of our virtual spring, we did a star lighting ceremony while we had staff out for the workday, and recorded that, and we sang the camp song and had all of that. And so all of those are still on our YouTube channel and linked through our website. So we have had people who are going back to them even now and visiting them. We, in the fall, decided to do a virtual day adventure that looked more like summer camp, but was only 3 activity sessions long and did not include any camp kits. So it just featured interactive activities that we could do with the campers during that 3-hour block. One other thing that I guess I should go back, and I didn't mention this with the summer program, but when we were designing that schedule, we also really strived to give a variety of types of programs, of activities, because not every camper likes the same thing, right? You have those campers who love arts and crafts, and you have those campers who hate arts and crafts. We really just kind of laid it out so that our first activity after morning flagpole each day was a very hands-on activity, usually more like an arts and crafts type thing. Second activity was a science or nature activity. Sometimes it was show and tell with our camp animals, because we have snakes and lizards and all kinds of things that live here at Chinchilla, that live here at camp. And so some of it involved just bringing, showing, and talking about the animals like we would during a regular week of summer camp. After lunch, the first session in the afternoon, we focused on energizers and movement, getting people kind of up and moving in that afternoon lull. And then the final activity before dinner each day was more of an arts in terms of music, drama, or cooking. So either music arts, drama, or culinary arts is kind of how we did that. So we just really wanted to have a variety of sessions every day. And we had some kids who like set out of all of the energizers. We had some campers who set out of all the arts and crafts, and we had some who were there for every single session all week long. So just a little bit of fill in on that. Moving on, we were approached by the state of Texas asking us about doing a virtual family camp for the deaf blind community. Yeah, you can go, it's good. You can go on to that next one there. And with that, we were really trying to focus on things that were multisensory, because again, these campers had both vision impairment and hearing impairment in most cases. It was a family camp, so we knew that there were going to be family members there who could assist them on the other end of the computer. So that was definitely helpful, but we really wanted to help them with some skills building, communication, independent living, socialization. Those were factors that the Health and Human Services Commission had as goals. So we really wrapped those into the things that we did with them. And we finished out the evening with a virtual dance. I get to play camp DJ. Was one of my favorite roles that I get to play at camp. And so I got to do that for that camp, as well as for summer camp and some other times that we've had those kind of programs going on. I already mentioned the virtual day adventure. I kind of started talking about it before we got onto that slide, but much like summer camp, you know, we tried to have a variety of types of programming within that one day. We can move on to the next slide. So when I put these slides together, at the top there, I talked about virtual respite weekend camp. Typically during the year, we do respite weekend camps where campers come on a on a Saturday morning and stay until Sunday afternoon. And as I mentioned at the beginning, respite is a big part of what we have in our mission, and that we provide that break to families from caregiving responsibilities. And families during the COVID area need that break more than ever before, but it's just not yet safe to give it. So we said, let's try to do the next best thing. Let's do a virtual respite weekend camp and make it sort of like a mini version of our summer virtual week was. But we have now canceled it because we only had 8 campers sign up for it. And we were going to be sending out kits for it, so those would have to be going out now to make sure that they got there. And with only 8 enrolled, we just said, you know what, this is not what our families need right now. They're zoomed out. They are looking at screens all the time, and it's not just the campers, it's also mom and dad, it's, you know, everybody. And if we have time, I'll tell you a little bit about kind of what that has led us to. But before I do, I'm going to get to the thing that Dave teased at his introduction, and that is the fact that we are doing family weekend retreats this fall. We just completed our 4th one. They are in person. We are doing them with extreme social distancing. So every family stays in a cabin with just their family, just like they were staying at home. Every family goes to activities with just their family. So we have a very strict activity schedule. It's not like free choice and you go where you want to, when you want to, which is typically how we do our family weekend retreats. But we have them very precisely scheduled now. Sessions are 45 minutes long, and then there's a 15-minute transition time for them to get to their next activity while we get out the peroxide cleaners and wipe every surface down and, you know, do all of the cleaning that we need to do to prepare for the next family that's coming into that activity area. We've done as many outdoors as we can as well. We've had some all camp activities outdoors, like an opening campfire. And our new amphitheater and campfire pit area is really large. It's designed so that it could fit all 350 people who normally would be here for a summer camp week. And with the family retreats, we're only looking at 50 to 75 people, so we can easily spread folks out in that amphitheater. We let one family at a time come up to make s'mores. We have, you know, different roasting forks for each family, all of that just to keep the risk of exposure to a minimum. And then in the dining hall, every family has an assigned table. They come and they sit at their table and we serve them. They don't get up and move around. They don't touch drink machines. They don't touch serving things. We bring everything, place it on their table. If they need refills, we bring new serving bowls and set them on the table, and don't clean and take anything back to the dish room for sanitizing until after all the families have left the building.
So Brandon, how many families do you have?
So we have been doing 10 or 11 families. Typically our capacity is about 14 to 16, but we've kept it to about 10 or 11 for these, just to make sure that we have enough activity areas primarily, and cabin spaces to make sure everybody is distanced. I think we can move to the next slide. These are just a couple of quotes from the folks who have participated in those family retreats. And I won't read them this time, but you can take a second to read them. And I guess when we talk about lessons learned, which I believe is on the next slide. Oh, you can see, I will say before we go, or you can go ahead and go, it's fine. That picture in the bottom left, that's our new amphitheater and all of that I was talking about. So those stone blocks are what we have as benches. They're limestone blocks, and that's our new Arts and Crafts Center behind it. But that gives us plenty of room to spread those families out in that great outdoor space. So, all right, you can move on to the next one. So just lessons learned, especially for virtual programs, we learned we need to create step-by-step guides for logging in and participating. Underestimating the value of a fast and reliable internet connection is something we don't want to do. And we feel like it was important for us to broadcast from camp so people could see camp that is familiar to them. But we also felt it was one of our burdens because our internet connection is not super great out here in our rural area. We learned that we needed to slow down. I think it definitely applied to our campers with cognitive challenges, but I think we learned all together in the virtual world, you just don't have all the contextual cues that you typically do in in-person setting. And it just takes people a little bit longer to figure out, wait, what is that they're showing? I can't see it very well. And so they're looking around and they're trying to get supplies and get it together. And so slowing down is something that we have had to keep reminding ourselves with that. Cooking activities, we learned we should send the full recipe in advance, not just the list of ingredients they want to know, and maybe have it measured out already in advance for many families. We definitely learned as we got more familiar with Zoom to make sure we spotlighted every camper at least once throughout each day. We tried as best we could to spotlight each one throughout each activity, but at least throughout each day that we were spreading that around because you always have those campers, just like when you're in person, who want to be the center of attention. And so you have to make that effort to spread that around. We definitely want to let campers socialize with each other, but also to make sure that we're moderating that so it doesn't get out of control.
Brandon,
go ahead.
Harry made a good point. This is a good screen. We're going to send the slides out after this is over, but this is a good screen to take a picture of because I know for virtual camp, we usually slow down, but unfortunately, we're going to have to speed up a little bit this time because we're running out of time for questions or outside stories. But this is a great compendium of lessons learned. I think everybody's looking at this and saying, oh yeah, we learned that too. So if you want, take a screen capture. Otherwise, we're going to send this to you. Other than that, Brandon, if you could pick out any other single lesson learned, what would you say was the most important?
I mean, slowing down definitely, but I think also the next to the last one there and the last one, I'll talk about the last one. So think about how these virtual programs, even post-COVID, how they may be useful to supplement your programs. Like some of the other folks talked about, we had some campers who joined us for the very first time through our virtual program. And they said, you know, we've been looking at camp for several years, but we just haven't been comfortable sending our kid off to camp alone. This was a great way for us to get familiar with you. Now we'll be ready for that once COVID says it's okay. But we realize that we always have waiting lists. We always are unable to take all the campers who want to come to camp in the summer, and are realizing that we may want to offer some virtual opportunities even along with in-person programs once they get back to speed, not only as a recruitment tool to some extent, but just as a service to those who are on a wait list, who really love camp and want to be part of it, but didn't get in for some reason. So
right, and I think we learned that too, is that there are going to be kids who either because of developmentally or physically cannot be at camp, and there will now be a virtual component, I'm sure, for many camps for those kids to participate.
And someone added a comment in the chat that this is also a great outreach for kids who are in the hospital during camp.
Yeah, and that's how we ended up using it, and we'll use it in the future. In fact, that was Lizzie from Camp Fantastic and Special Love. And speaking of Lizzie, she is the one who put together our website, which is still interactive. So if you want to go to campfantastic.org, I'll put it in the chat box. You can play around with it and see how we used submission buttons, and had a photo albums online and all that good stuff. I know there were other camps that used websites very effectively, and it's just an example of how it worked. Cool. Sorry, Brandon, you have one more slide? Or was that just your contact?
Yeah, that was just contact info. Yeah.
Okay. Well, wonderful. I think that brings us around full circle. We've heard several lessons in addition to what was on Brandon's slide. One of the first ones I heard was also one of the most important. Don't try to duplicate camp. We made that mistake in the first few weeks of planning and realized that nothing duplicates camp. And so this was an opportunity to try something new and do things that maybe we don't do at camp. And then don't try to compete with camp, and feel free to borrow, because as I put in the chat box, borrow is COCA's middle name. We didn't talk about camp in a box very much, but I know that a lot of people did it. Is there a separate session? I don't remember. Is there somebody's talking about camp in the box this week? I thought I remembered seeing it as a topic, but if not, anyway, I wanted to turn it over.
Town hall. We had one of the town halls before camp. We did a session on camp in the box.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
I believe that will still be available if you want to watch those ones from before the summer.
Good. Well, from our panelists, before we open it up to everybody, did any lessons learned that we did not cover here from panelists? And if not, then I'll just open it up to everybody.
I think we hit everything. We should all have perfect camps next year, Dave.
I think you're probably right, Harry. Linda, were you going to say something? I saw you on mute.
Yeah, I'd just like to add a big lesson that we learned was providing more opportunities for small group interactions. So we early on would have programs where maybe we'd have between 70 to 100 participants wanting to come on all at once. And it made it much more of like watching a TV show experience. And we found we started having much more natural conversations, social interactions when we split up our programs a little bit, made them smaller so that we had maybe under 20 families on at a time, really made it a much more fulfilling experience for everybody involved.
And somebody mentioned finding the right platform, and I think Zoom was a great platform for a lot of people, especially for breakout rooms, because prior to August, WebEx had not figured out a way to create quick and easy breakout rooms. And so WebEx was kind of the go-to for the big groups when you just needed a smoother flow, because I do think that WebEx is pretty good at handling higher loads, audience numbers. But then Zoom became the go-to for breakout rooms because you could literally create them on the fly as you needed them. I had promised in the description for this session that we were going to give out awards. And we did not hear very many good fail stories yet. So I'm going to condense it and say, for the next 8 minutes, if you can give us the best fail story of tech gone bad, or maybe just a lesson that you learned that you'll never ever forget for next year or any other year, now is your chance. So let me open it up for questions and or good fail stories, because we all love a good fail, since we can all relate. Don't be shy.
I'll kick it off, Dave. I'll admit we had a video. We had that mind reading video, and I did mention it took 7 hours to do because it ended up being only a 9-minute video, something like that. But I didn't think about editing. I just tried to go all the way through without making a mistake. That's why it took 7 hours.
And so you kept going back to try to get it perfect. Right?
And then about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I figured out if I went out of the screen like this and came back, I could just edit it all together. And I told the story to about 2 people, and they all said, "Why did you not do that in the beginning?" And I don't know why I did it. Mainly because I'm an idiot when it came to that. Because again, we're all trying to figure this out. And yeah, no, editing is key. Editing is key on videos.
Well, we often say at camp that, the kids don't know what was supposed to happen. Well, in virtual camp, you can show them exactly what you want to happen, because, nothing needs to be accepted.
There's an outtake video that is not safe for work and will not be shared, but it is funny.
Well, so was the original. So if you've not watched Harry's mind reader video, I highly recommend it. It's pretty hard to keep an audience attention for 9 minutes, but he does.
One thing I talked about the importance of slowing down. I didn't say that in our very first hands-on arts and crafts session, we had a grandmother who was not real tech savvy, who was trying to help her 2 grandchildren with special needs do the craft project, and we were reading the chat, we were listening about slowing down, we were trying to start slowing down, and the grandmother was just going, "You're making children cry. You are making, slow down. You are making children cry." And so when I went back and needed to add, because we decided we were going to post all the sessions for anybody who missed them because of, whatever reason, it took me a while to edit out the grandmother's comments so that because she was scaring children is what she was doing. So anyway, that was our epic fail, I guess.
Nice.
In the chat, someone posted that they one of the campers named themselves as Spam, and they thought they were being flagged. And there's a funny thing with Okaizu is Dr. Mike tried to enter one of our calls, but be undercover so no one would know who he was. And myself, Norm Morgan, our camp director, knew who this undercover person was, and we kicked them out, and they weren't responding. So if you know Dr. Mike, our medical director of all camp and co-founder and always at camp, we kicked him out of camp, and we felt very that was our fail right off the bat.
We had a similar, I'll say, with kids. The kids, they all signed in on their parents' computers, so their Zoom name would be like Patricia something that was their parents' name. So we tried to get them to change their names, first of all, to try to keep track of all the kids and be able to call on them, especially the new campers that we didn't know. And so we asked them to change their name, but we found out that one savvy camper changed his name to one of the counselors' names and then went in the chat and started chatting on his chat thing. So and was sending inappropriate chats to other counselors. So we found out that we need to have everybody put their name, and it's just a basic rule like wearing your name tag at camp. You have to have your right name on your picture.
And I don't know if you guys are reading the other things in the chat. Someone had put up there that their fail was that they just didn't take enough photos or have families send in photos. So what they got was a lot of Zoom screenshots. And I think that's, everybody's nodding. Yep.
I'm loving the word from Rachel at camp.
Somebody read the, Christina, read yours.
We had a camper who was running away from his mom. He was carrying the computer and running around the house. I don't know, she was trying to get him to eat lunch or something. And he was running away from her, and you could see her behind him in the camera lens chasing him. And he, of course, fell and dropped the computer.
I'm loving the one from Rachel at Camp Quality talking about trying to teach Farkle to a bunch of children. Honestly, I think you replicated camp right there, because trying to teach new games can be just as fun as that.
We are almost at the top of the hour, so I am going to release the poll just in case anyone has to go. Right at it's 6 o'clock California time, so I don't know what time it is wherever you're at. I don't know those conversions, so I'll release that poll, and then you guys can go ahead and feel free to keep chatting after that is done. Man, it's past my bedtime.
And remember that you can save the chat if you want, and you can read the stories later as well.
Yes, if you look at the bottom of the chat box next to the right of the word file, there are 3 dots. You click those dots, the first and only choice says save chat, and it will save it to your computer as a file, a text file you can read later. Thank you. I know, Katie, thank you for, you spent 3 minutes of your life trying to get everyone broken into breakout rooms while everyone sat and watched you. That we can all relate. That's a very awkward thing. If you are hosting a Zoom call, you now have the ultimate power that you can name people anything you want to. So when Tammy mentioned we had a camper who kept using the wrong names, he would make up names, and so he didn't realize that I kept changing his name to things that would embarrass him far worse than what he was coming up with. And so at the risk of almost getting him to quit, leave camp, he did learn the lesson about keeping his name the way it should be. But you can do that. You have that power as a host. Any last comments from our panelists? I just want to thank all of you, Linda, Tammy, Harry, Brandon. We learned from each other, and I think you covered just about all the bases on you know, what goes into a good camp and what lessons we learn from a bad one. Any parting words of wisdom from any of you?
I have something real quick, Dave. I just want to know, Harry, how in the world is your house so clean? You live inside a
Two words, no children.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a Brookstone or Sharper image, man. I mean, that is impeccable.
I appreciate that. I took the day off just to do this.
I appreciate you doing that for us, man. That's wonderful.
We're going to get that shot to use as virtual backgrounds for the rest of us.
There you go.
When I present like the Apple.
How's that?
Linda, someone asked if you'd be willing to share the layout of your schedule.
Yeah, I think, Dave, you said we're sharing those slides, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Does that answer, is that what you're looking for?
Let's see, Becca, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that'll work. Thank you so much, Linda.
Oh, perfect. Not a problem.
Cool. Well, thank you all very much. Sorry, did anybody got a parting shot, Christina?
There's a question about how to access the slides. You should be able to access the slides from the COCA-Con website or the app for the conference.
Yeah.
Yes.
May
So
not be right now, but it'll be soon.
Right where you got this link, at the bottom there should be a file uploaded to that session, and all the slides will be on there. If you have any questions, feel free to hop onto the help link, and I can help you guys out. If not today, tomorrow.
Now, somebody mentioned that we should end every session with a dance party. We did try to end some of our sessions with, when we're campfire, one of the rules of the campfire is that rubbing elbows is good medicine, because we want people in nice and tight. Now, during COVID, maybe not. But virtually, we tried to end some of our sessions with, we would tell the kids rubbing elbows is good medicine, and then they would lean forward. You can do this. Lean forward so that your elbows fill your screen on side to side. No, I don't want your elbow in my face, Harry. Side to side. Now find the person next to you. Find the next person next to you and try to rub their elbows.
Well,
Harry's punching me while I'm trying to rub his elbows.
There
you go. And we tell the kids rubbing elbows is good medicine. So thank you all for being here tonight. We will see you at the, I guess, first one tomorrow. Thanks for coming, and thanks to our panelists. You all rocked it.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.